My main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
With Yuzuha being out in Zenless Zone Zero for almost 2 weeks now, there's a narrative being pushed within the gacha space, mostly from the Wuthering Waves side, that ZZZ wants you to not play its game given the nature of her kit design and a handful of people jumping the gun in assuming how she's meant to be played, swapping to her briefly to activate her EX special attack, and then returning to whatever DPS characters you have in your team. Once again, attempting to find needles in a haystack for issues they take with a game they just can't seem to keep out of their mouths. This is your reminder that WoWa players have their own hack and slash gacha from Kuro games that they could be praising and comparing ZZZ to, but I guess with all the Twitch tracker dick measuring, they've decided to just collectively stay quiet about PGR to maintain their narrative. Anyways, let's start poking holes into this flimsy critique. The first and most egregious aspect of this narrative is that it automatically assumes that Wuthering Waves' handling of support units is objectively better. For anyone who needs a quick refresher, a core design of WoWa's combat system is the intro-outro system for characters. Every unit has a circular meter to the left of their health bar referred to as the Concerto Energy Meter, that fills up in combat varying based on the action performed. When full, swapping to a different character will have the existing character perform an outro skill, while the character coming in will perform an intro skill. Outro skills are particularly strong on supports and sub-DPSs, as it's the primary source for some of the most potent buffs for a team's main DPS unit. The problem with the Concerto system is that because of just how strong it is to a team's DPS output, the player is always meant to play around the intro-outro skills as the foundation for any meaningful team play or rotations. Attempting to deviate from utilizing intro-outro skills will in most circumstances result in a direct DPS loss and results in longer clear times for endgame content. To frame this in a different way, Wuthering Waves players are suggesting that their combat system is better because you are effectively forced into longer field time with non-DPS characters, or characters whom are heavily criticized for having awkward kits. ZZZ's combat system of the Big Four is the most flexible when it comes to how you play your teams, as the combat is more focused on timing, reflexes, and managing the resources of your party. Comparatively, WoWa is the most restrictive, as the Concerto system not only dictates how you play your teams, but who you should even be using on your teams in the first place. The irony is not lost on me that the game with literal passive bonuses locked behind having specific characters in a team somehow has more options than the game that doesn't do that. The next point I'd like to bring up is that WoWa players themselves don't even like longer on-field times for support characters either. For how much they like to assume the Concerto system makes for more involved gameplay for non-DPS units, WoWa players sure love to talk about ways to get out of said longer field times. Tell me, what's the 4-star weapon that is considered the only one worth pulling for and building in the eyes of the WoWa community? That's right, it's the Variation Recidifier. This bad boy's whole shtick is that it gives its user a bunch of Concerto energy when casting a skill, greatly cutting down on field time for characters like Baiji, Farina, and Shorekeeper. There is of course Overture as well, but to a lesser value due to the sheer number of sword characters being DPSs and not supports. Want a couple more examples? What about Farina's Sequence Note 2, a very popular 5-star character duplicate that greatly improves her performance in a team, straight up giving her more Concerto energy on skill cast and more resources to use for her passive kit that is also designed to give her even more Concerto energy. How about another? Shorekeeper's signature weapon, the Stellar Symphony, giving her Concerto energy after casting an ultimate. And let's of course not forget Sanhua, considered the best 4-star character in the game, with no one coming close to her in power. What's she known for again? Oh yeah, having the fastest rotation time in the game thanks to insane Concerto energy generation. I'm sick. Don't let Wuthering Waves players tell you that Yuzuha is somehow bad for the health of Zenless Zone Zero, all the while they go on and on about Variation, Farina S2, and Sanhua without noticing their very own hypocrisy. If they genuinely believed having supports be on field for longer made for more interesting gameplay, they wouldn't be trying so hard to cut down on said field time. Another point I want to make about the Yuzuha critique is that one-button support units didn't start with Yuzuha. Nicole, Lucy, and Rina are all 1.0 support units whom all are meant to use their EX special attack and then immediately be swapped out. Saying one button supports started with Astra Yao and was perpetuated by Yuzuha is straight up misinformation. That was how a majority of support units behaved as far back as the launch of the game. While on the topic of more active supports, we already have one. Her name is Sokaku, but a lot of you wrote her off because of her longer field time when compared to the other support units anyway. Please, guys, make it make sense. The last point I want to make about Yuzuha is that she does have more to her kit going for her than just pressing one button, which in turn actually means she has more going for her than that of most of the supports we've had since launch. Holding Yuzuha's basic attack at any point in her combo will have her enter a parry stance for a short window of time. Taking a hit during the parry will have her follow up with an attack similar to her defensive assist. Secondly, Yuzuha has two different follow-ups the player can enter into from the aforementioned parry or defensive assist based on a timed input, resulting in a stronger follow-up attack with higher damage, daze accumulation, and physical anomaly buildup. Lastly, her parries and defensive assist are a viable means of generating her unique resource, Sugar Points, which allows her to perform her aftershock attacks. Last I checked, none of the other launch day supports had any time input attacks or parries, and only one other support agent had unique interactions with defensive assists. Please refer to the previous image. Just like the situation with the Miasma shields, we are seeing content creators leave out information, be it intentionally or unintentionally, to try and fit a narrative that paints Zenless Zone Zero in a negative light whenever they can. The fact of the matter is, many creators have spent the entirety of ZZZ's runtime trying to convince people that it's some brainless button masher of a hack and slash game, so when the game presents more complex characters or game mechanics, they either ignorantly stumble through the game with that same outdated mindset, or they have become aware of the fact that ZZZ isn't a brainless button masher, but are too prideful to take back their previous comments of the game's mechanical depth. Harping on about how ZZZ should have supports be more directly engaged in combat, all while trying their very hardest to spend as little time using their own supports in Wuthering Waves. If that's not the pot calling the kettle black, then I don't know what is. And with that, I have said all I really wanted to about yet another malicious narrative being spun against Zenless Zone Zero by the Wuthering Waves community. And if anyone's asking, what if this is the Genshin or the Honkai Star Rail community? Let's be real here for a moment. Those two games communities don't bat an eye or even look in our direction. We know which community's doing it. Anyways, there's nothing wrong with Yuzuha as a character in the meta of ZZZ just because she doesn't meet an arbitrary set of criteria by a group of people who don't even enjoy playing this game. We don't need limited support agents to needlessly reinvent the wheel with each one coming out. If you happen to take such a big issue with Yuzuha's design, then just double down on hyper-investing on your DPSs to make up for the loss in not pulling her. But until then, this has been Arikado Zodan, and I'm clocking out.